The nurse grabbed Helen's arm just as she was about to rush past the emergency ward doors. Miss, you need to settle the deposit now, or we can't prep her for surgery. Her breath caught painfully in her throat. The girl turned, eyes wide and frantic, staring past the nurse to the glass room where her mother lay motionless, tubes running in and out of her frail body. Machines beeped steadily, cruelly calm, as if mocking her panic. Please, she whispered, her voice trembling. Just give me till tomorrow morning, I'm begging you. The nurse's face softened for a split second, then hardened again. We've already waited too long. Without payment, we stop treatment. The words landed like a slap. Stop treatment. Helen's knees almost gave out as the nurse walked away, already done with her. She stood there frozen, heart pounding, chest tight, staring at the woman who had sacrificed everything for her and was now slipping away because of money. Money she didn't have. She stumbled into the hallway, dragging her hands down her face as tears finally spilled over. Her phone felt heavy in her palm as she unlocked it, scrolling through contacts she already knew wouldn't help. Friends who were struggling like her, relatives who had stopped picking her calls, loan apps that had rejected her days ago. She dialed one last number anyway. It rang. Once, twice, then stopped. Voicemail. She laughed, a broken, hysterical sound that earned her strange looks from passing nurses. Her mother had raised her alone after her father died, working 2 jobs, skipping meals, pushing her dreams aside just so her daughter could have a chance at a better life. And now she was about to lose her because she couldn't afford a surgery. I won't let you die, she whispered fiercely, pressing her forehead against the cold hospital wall. I promise. She didn't know how. She just knew she had to find a way. The message came in less than 10 minutes later, an unknown number. She almost ignored it, until she saw the first line. Are you still looking for urgent cash? Her heart slammed violently against her ribs. She replied with shaking fingers. Yes. Please. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Meet me today. 6 p.m. Royal Crest Hotel. Lobby. Her stomach twisted. Royal Crest was not a place people like her stepped into. It was a luxury hotel reserved for politicians, billionaires, and people whose lives didn't revolve around hospital bills and desperation. She hesitated only for a second. Then she typed back, okay. By evening, she stood outside the towering glass building, her cheap shoes scuffed, her dress wrinkled from sitting at the hospital all day. She hugged her bag tightly to her chest like armor, taking a deep breath before stepping inside. The lobby smelled of expensive perfume and polished marble. Everything gleamed. Everyone looked important. She felt painfully out of place. Helen's eyes scanned the room nervously until they landed on him. He stood near the reception desk, tall and commanding, dressed in a perfectly tailored dark suit that screamed money without trying too hard. His posture was rigid, his expression unreadable, his presence impossible to ignore. When his eyes met hers, something shifted. They were sharp, assessing, cold. He walked toward her with measured steps, stopping just a foot away. You came, he said, his voice deep and controlled. She swallowed. You're the one who texted me? Yes. No greetings, no small talk, straight to the point. I don't have time, he continued, so I'll be direct. Her heart pounded as she nodded. I need someone to play a role, he said. For a short time. Her brows knitted in confusion. What kind of role? He studied her face like he was calculating something dangerous. A mother. The word hit her like a slap. What? She blurted. My daughter has a compulsory parents' meeting at her school, he explained calmly. Both parents are expected to be present. And, her voice came out small, and her mother won't be attending. A pause. She's unavailable. Something about the way he said it sent a chill down her spine. I need someone who looks decent, can act composed, and won't embarrass me. Her lips parted in shock. You want me to pretend to be your child's mother? Yes. She laughed nervously. You've got the wrong person. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and turned the screen toward her. A number flashed boldly. It was more money than she had ever seen in her life. Her breath left her lungs. "That's the payment," he said. "For one meeting." Her mind screamed no. Her heart screamed yes. "That money," she whispered, eyes burning. "That's enough for my mother's surgery." He raised an eyebrow slightly. "Then this should be an easy decision." She stepped back, shaking her head. "I can't. I'm not like that. I can't lie to a child." His gaze hardened. "You don't have to love her. Just play a part." Her mother's pale face flashed in her mind. The machines, the nurse's words, stop treatment. Her fists clenched. "How long?" she asked quietly. "1 week," he replied. "After the meeting, you disappear." Her voice cracked. "And the child? She'll be fine." She wasn't sure if he was convincing her or himself. Silence stretched between them. Then she nodded. "I'll do it." His eyes darkened with something unreadable. "Good." Minutes later, she sat in the back of his sleek black car, heart racing as the city lights blurred past. Everything felt unreal, like she'd stepped into someone else's life. "Rules," he said suddenly. "You don't touch anything that isn't yours. You don't ask questions about the past, and you don't get emotionally involved." She scoffed weakly. "Trust me, I won't." He glanced at her briefly. "We'll see." The car pulled into a massive estate minutes later. As she stepped inside, a small figure stood at the top of the staircase, watching them with curious eyes. A little girl. "Daddy?" the child called softly. Something in the girl's voice made her chest ache. The billionaire turned to her and said, "This is Mia." Then, to the child, "Mia, this is—" He hesitated for half a second. "Your mother." Mia's eyes widened as they locked onto her, and in that moment, the girl realized this wasn't just a deal anymore. This was about to change everything. Mia stared at her like she was trying to solve a puzzle too big for her small mind. "My mother?" the girl repeated slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. The woman's throat tightened instantly. She forced a smile that felt stiff on her face and nodded. "Hi, sweetheart." Mia didn't smile back. Instead, she looked at her father. "You didn't tell me she was coming today." He avoided her eyes. It was a last-minute decision. Mia's gaze returned to the woman, lingering on her face, her clothes, her nervous hands. Children noticed everything. That realization made her pulse race. "Oh," Mia said finally. Just one word, but it carried disappointment, confusion, and something dangerously close to hope. The woman felt it settle heavy in her chest. Dinner that night was awkward. The long dining table felt too big for just 3 people, yet the silence made it feel suffocating. Plates clinked softly, cutlery scraped porcelain. Every sound felt amplified. "So," Mia said suddenly, swinging her legs under the chair, "where have you been?" The woman froze mid-bite. The billionaire shot her a sharp look. She swallowed quickly. Daddy said you were busy," Mia continued, tilting her head. "Busy where?" Her heart hammered. She glanced at him again, silently begging. He cleared his throat. "Your mother has been away." Mia frowned. "For years?" The woman's fingers curled around her fork. "Years." She forced herself to meet the child's eyes. "Sometimes adults make mistakes," she said gently. "And sometimes they stay away longer than they should." Mia studied her carefully. "Are you staying now?" The question hit harder than expected. She hesitated just a second too long. "For a little while," she answered softly. Mia nodded, accepting it like a fragile truth she was afraid to press too hard. Then she smiled faintly and returned to her food. That night, as the woman lay alone in the guest bedroom, she stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Her phone sat on the bedside table, open to the hospital's payment portal. The surgery deposit was already scheduled to be transferred the next morning. Her mother would live, but at what cost? A knock came softly at the door. She sat up immediately. "Yes?" The door opened slowly and the billionaire stepped inside, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," he said. Her heart sank. "Did I mess up?" "No," he replied. "You handled dinner well." Relief washed through her, brief but powerful. "There are adjustments," he continued. "Mia is perceptive. You'll need to spend time with her. Make this believable." Her lips parted. "You want me to bond with her?" "Yes." "That's dangerous," she said quietly. His jaw tightened. "So is suspicion." She hesitated. "And you?" "What about me?" She met his gaze. "What do I tell people about us?" His eyes darkened slightly. "We were married. We separated. We're trying again." Her stomach flipped. "Trying again?" "It's more convincing." She let out a shaky breath. "You really thought this through." "I don't do anything halfway." The next few days passed faster than she expected. Mia insisted on sitting beside her during breakfast. She dragged her into the playroom, proudly showing off drawings and half-finished puzzles. She asked questions, innocent ones at first, then harder ones. "What's my favorite color? What food do I hate? Why didn't you come to my birthday?" Each question felt like a tiny knife. She learned quickly, adapted faster. She memorized details, paid attention, stayed gentle. And slowly, dangerously, she began to care. One afternoon, she found Mia crying quietly in the garden, knees hugged to her chest. "What's wrong?" she asked softly, crouching beside her. Mia sniffed. "They said my mom left because she didn't love me." Her chest tightened painfully. "Who said that?" "Some kids at school." She didn't think. She pulled Mia into her arms. "That's not true," she said firmly. "Sometimes adults leave because they're broken, not because the child isn't worth staying for." Mia clung to her like she was afraid she might disappear too. From the terrace above, the billionaire watched silently. Something shifted in him that moment, something uncomfortable and unfamiliar. That night, after Mia had fallen asleep, curled against her side during a movie, the billionaire spoke quietly. "You didn't have to do that." She looked down at the sleeping child. "Yes, I did." He studied her face. "You're forgetting this is temporary." Her voice was soft but steady. "Are you?" The question hung between them. The school meeting arrived sooner than she expected. She stood in front of the mirror that morning, smoothing the expensive dress his assistant had picked out. She barely recognized herself. She looked composed, almost powerful. "You look fine," he said from the doorway. "Fine?" She scoffed lightly. "This feels like walking into a lie I can't undo." He stepped closer. "Just follow my lead." At the school, heads turned as they walked in together. Parents whispered. Teachers smiled approvingly. Mia beamed, gripping her hand tightly. "This is my mom," she announced proudly to anyone who would listen. Each time she said it, something inside the woman cracked a little more. During the meeting, they sat side by side, answering questions in perfect sync. The teacher praised Mia's performance, her confidence, her improvement. "You have a lovely family," the teacher said warmly. The billionaire nodded politely. The woman smiled and felt tears sting her eyes. On the drive home, silence stretched again, but it was different now, heavy, loaded. "Thank you," he said finally, "for today." She nodded. "You're welcome." "You didn't have to stay after the meeting," he added, but Mia wanted ice cream. She smiled faintly. "So did I." He glanced at her, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. That evening, after Mia had gone to bed, he poured 2 glasses of wine and handed her one. "To surviving," he said. She clinked her glass against his. "To pretending." Their eyes met, held. For a second, the world felt dangerously small. She looked away first. "I should leave after this week," she said quietly. "Yes," he replied immediately, but neither of them sounded convinced. Her phone buzzed on the table. A notification from the hospital. Payment received. Surgery scheduled. Her breath caught. Her mother was safe. She should have felt relief. Instead, her chest ached, because just as she began to feel like she belonged somewhere, she knew it was about to end. The morning sun poured through the mansion's tall windows, lighting up the polished floors and the grand staircase. Helen tiptoed down, careful not to wake Mia, still curled in her blankets, her small body hugging a stuffed toy. Every step felt heavier than the last. The past few days had already tangled her heart in ways she hadn't expected. She found the billionaire in the kitchen, leaning casually against the counter, sipping coffee. His eyes flicked to her as she entered. "You slept well?" he asked, voice calm but carrying tension. "Enough," Helen replied, gripping her cup tightly. He studied her carefully. "Mia has activities today. Stay with her." Helen's chest tightened. She nodded, already aware that she didn't want to leave Mia's side. She had come for money, yes, but somewhere along the way, she had grown to care. Far too much. Mia came bounding down the stairs, messy-haired and full of energy. "Mom, can we bake muffins after school?" Helen's chest clenched. "Mom." One word, spoken by this little girl, and it carried more weight than she had anticipated. She forced a small smile. "Of course, sweetheart." School passed in a blur. Mia chattered, laughed, held Helen's hand, and Helen found herself laughing too. The child was clever, sweet, and completely trusting. Every small gesture, the tilt of Mia's head, the way her hand found Helen's, cut deeper than any money she could have earned. On the drive home, the air felt thick with unspoken tension. The billionaire's hand rested lightly on the wheel, his eyes occasionally flicking to Helen, studying her. "You're good with her," he said finally. Helen's pulse jumped. "I am?" "Yes," he said quietly. "Better than I expected." Her stomach twisted. Temporary. 1 week, 1 meeting, that was all. Then she would leave. Back at the mansion, Helen helped Mia with homework, listened to the stories of her day, laughed at the child's little jokes, and tucked her into bed that night. Just as she turned to leave the room, there was a soft knock at the front door. Her heart froze. Visitors weren't expected. She glanced at the billionaire, who paused mid-step. His usually unreadable face had a flicker of tension. "She's not supposed to be here," he muttered. Helen's hands trembled as she walked toward the door. Her imagination ran wild. A stranger? A threat? Something worse? The door swung open. Bianca stood there, tall, confident, radiating pride and authority. Her gaze swept across the room and landed on Helen, lingering just long enough to make Helen's stomach twist. "Who are you?" Bianca asked calmly, her eyes sharp and unwavering. Helen froze. I'm Helen," she stammered. I was hired to—" Bianca's eyes flicked to Mia, who had now stepped forward, her small hands gripping the hem of her nightshirt. "And you are?" Bianca said, her tone firm, unwavering. Helen's throat went dry. She wanted to explain, to justify herself, to say something that would make this moment less real. But Bianca's presence, her authority, the way she radiated ownership, made every word fail. I'm Mia's caretaker," Helen said finally, her voice small, wavering. Bianca tilted her head, a faint smile playing on her lips, but her eyes never left Helen. "Caretaker?" she repeated, voice soft but proud. "Who do you think you are?" Helen stepped back, heart pounding. "Wait, who are you?" Her voice cracked. She couldn't believe the audacity, the certainty in Bianca's tone. Bianca straightened, her shoulders squared. "I am Mia's mother, her real mother, and I have always been her mother." The words landed like a thunderclap. Helen felt her legs almost buckle. The room spun slightly. She stared at Bianca, at Mia clinging to her, at the child who had just called Helen Mom without knowing the truth, and suddenly everything she had built, everything she had pretended to be, felt meaningless. Helen's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. She was speechless, frozen by the force of reality. Mia blinked up at both women, confusion written across her small face. "Mom, who is she?" she whispered, looking at Helen. Helen swallowed hard, her chest tight. I'm... She couldn't finish. Words failed her. Bianca stepped closer to Mia, gathering her in her arms. I am your mother, Mia. Always have been, always will be. Helen felt the weight of the moment crush her. She had entered this mansion to save her own family, to pretend for money, to play a role, and now she was unmasked completely. She had cared, yes, and maybe loved in her own flawed way, but this child, this family, had a rightful place that was not hers to occupy. Helen's eyes filled with shock, disbelief, and a bitter sting of defeat. She had been speechless when she had first agreed to the deal, but this was different. This was final. The billionaire said nothing. His usual authority filled the space, but he did not intervene. He let the tension speak for itself. Helen's knees felt weak. She wanted to explain, to apologize, to vanish, but she could do nothing. Bianca had claimed her place fully, proudly, without hesitation, and the weight of truth rendered Helen completely powerless. Mia, holding Bianca's hand tightly, glanced at Helen with wide, questioning eyes. Who are you?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. Helen could only stand there, speechless, trapped in the storm of her own making. Bianca smiled down at Mia, brushing her hair back gently. Everything will be all right now, Mia, she said softly, firmly, with the quiet pride of someone who had never left her place. Helen's chest tightened painfully. She had come to save her mother, to earn money, to act, to pretend, but now she realized she could never replace Bianca. She had been unmasked, defeated, and the life she thought she could step into had evaporated in a single, crushing moment. She finally whispered, almost inaudibly, I... But there were no words left to speak. She was utterly speechless, shocked, and forced to face the truth of her role. She did not belong here. And as the mansion settled into an uneasy silence, Helen understood that pretending had ended. Reality had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again.